We're here to talk about Zelda, so I want to know, with Breath of the Wild on the horizon, what happens next? Miyamoto has already hinted that the next Zelda game will be using the Breath of the Wild engine for multiplayer and looks at Triforce Heroes as an inspiration. And since it's reusing the same engine, can we expect a new game out in 2 or 3 years? Since Majora's Mask reused assets from Ocarina of Time and was finished in a year? Or will this game be launching in another 5 years like the length between Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Breath of the Wild? Because it's just gonna suck if we have to wait for the 35th anniversary to play the next Zelda game. Also, Nintendo's really been digging into past games for remakes lately. So could we see a remake for the NX between these two titles? And if so, which one? Remember, every home console Zelda title has basically already been remade. Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess were all remade. A Link to the Past was reimagined as A Link Between Worlds, and a lot of people believe that Breath of the Wild is a reimagining of the original Zelda game. And Aonuma himself has said that the game is inspired by the original title, which is why it was made to be open world and even features the same Twin Peak landmark from the original artwork. The only home console title left is Skyward Sword, which I think is obviously going to be remade soon without motion controls or with them mapped to the gamepad, like when playing it on the Dolphin emulator. And after that, they will have to dip into their 2D or handheld games, like Link's Awakening or the Oracle series. But for me personally, I would love for another remake of Ocarina of Time to happen, this time in HD instead of 3D with the Breath of the Wild engine. 2018 will be 1 year after Breath of the Wild releases and the official 20th anniversary of Ocarina of Time. So it would sort of make sense for that year to see a remake of the game that basically changed how video games are made today. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I imagine the Four Swords game could come out pretty soon, maybe within 2 or 3 years. But if we're gonna see a brand new Zelda, I imagine it's just gonna be just like it was with the GameCube and the Wii itself, where it's gonna be towards the end of this console's life cycle. As far as remakes go, I could definitely see a reimagining of the very first Legend of Zelda. Revamp the story a little bit. I mean, the core story is actually there, and it's actually really interesting. It's all through game manuals. So if they reimagine that with the new engine, that would be phenomenal, and it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it would be something that they could touch on, and it would bring a lot of nostalgia back from people, because a lot of people see Breath of the Wild as taking elements from the original Zelda game, like we have the two mountains, or the two twin mountains, whatever you fans are calling it, in the very distance, and Link is kind of sitting on the hill overlooking the sun and everything, and it matches the cover art, or not the cover art, but it matches the artwork for the original Zelda perfectly. So if they took it a step further and actually remade the original Zelda in the same type of way that they remade A Link to the Past with A Link Between Worlds, to where it was more of a reimagining, I think that would be the perfect way to kind of show fans that they're kind of looking at feedback and seeing what they wanted. Because a lot of people look at Breath of the Wild as sort of a remake of the original. But it still has some of those things tying it to it, but as they've said, it is a brand new game standing on its own and not a remake or a reimagining.
Right. I mean, there's still so much that we don't know about Breath of the Wild. So while at this very moment it seems very similar to the original game, I would chalk part of that up, not all of it of course, but part of that up to the fact that they're not willing to reveal the story yet. So, the fact that the first game really didn't have much of a story, it kind of makes it even that much more similar. But I mean, I do understand all the other aspects as well, just the open-endedness of it, and the calamity Ganon, and how basically Hyrule is in ruins. That's basically the core story of Zelda 1. But we still don't know quite what's going on with the story of Breath of the Wild. So I think that once we learn more about it, it's going to start separating itself from the original game.
Yeah, since, as I mentioned, basically all of the 3D home console Zelda games have been remade in one way or another, and they went back to A Link to the Past and reimagined it as A Link Between Worlds. If there was a different 2D game aside from the original that you would like to see remade, whether it be Link's Awakening, one of the Oracle games, Minish Cap, whatever, what would you like to see brought back in a 3D style? So the overworld would look basically the same, just reimagined for a behind-the-back 3D angle, and some of the dungeons obviously would have to be reworked a bit, but what game would you like to see remade in 3D?
Well, just to clarify, the absolute number one would be the original game, of course, but keeping with what you said just a second ago, Link's Awakening, for sure, would be my next choice. That game was absolutely great. It had a lot of charm to it, and I think that it would benefit greatly from a modernization to some extent, whatever extent, really.
Yeah, and a lot of people have been looking at the newest DLC for Hyrule Warriors. It's the Link's Awakening expansion, as them kind of hinting towards it being the next remake, whether it be more than likely that'll be a 3D remake, kind of like how A Link Between Worlds was, but still it's something to look forward to, because if you go back and look at that game, it was made and developed for the Game Boy, which wasn't technically fancy, I guess, or powerful in any way imaginable. So taking a game like that at this point in time is still fun to play, but visually outdated, and reworking it to maybe be on the 3DS or the NX, if the NX is supposedly this cross between the handheld and the home console, to where you can take it on the go if you want, or you can play it on your big TV at home if you prefer that. So if we did see another handheld remake, do you think it would be launching on the 3DS, or do you think it would be moved over to the NX?
I think if they went that route, I would definitely assume that it would be the handheld console. I'm still not sure exactly what they're planning to do with the NX. I mean, I've been hearing a lot of stuff about how it's supposed to be like part portable, part home console, and if that's the case, then obviously this would be one of the greatest titles to put onto the NX for that exact reason that you just said. It's just you could take it away, or you could throw it on your TV screen. But if they're going to make sure that they establish a handheld market versus a home console market, I'm gonna throw my hat into the handheld market, just so that it stays with tradition, I suppose.
Alright, so another question that I have for Zelda, and this kind of goes back to what happens after Breath of the Wild releases. Do you see them releasing any form of DLC, whether it be an amiibo that comes out 1 year after the game comes out, or sometime down the line that doesn't necessarily launch with it, that adds something in, kind of how they've been doing with Smash Brothers and its DLC, or even just releasing DLC that's not attached to an amiibo like they did with Mario Kart? Because as the more popular titles have been coming out, it seems that Nintendo has been experimenting more and more with DLC, whether it, as I mentioned, be attached to an amiibo or standalone DLC like we're used to seeing on PlayStation or Xbox. And with Breath of the Wild being obviously the major focus this year, and probably next year as well, do you see them going the DLC route? And if they do, what kind of DLC will it be? Will it be another story added on? Will it be more dungeons, new items to play with, whatever they add to it? Because whenever they remade A Link to the Past, they added the dungeon at the end of it where you can obtain the Four Sword for the Game Boy Advanced remake. Am I thinking about that correctly?
I think so.
And then when they remade, I think it was Link's Awakening with Link's Awakening DX, they also added a dungeon to that. So right. It's not something new for them to go back and add more to a Zelda game that's already came out. So do you think that they will revisit that with this game, since it is such a high priority, and you would think they would want to keep giving people something to come back to this game after they've completed it or put it down?
And this is for Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
See, I'd be very, very surprised. It's not... Like, I would say it's a little different from Nintendo's past MO, to, like... Aside from Hyrule Warriors, of course, where they were just progressively putting out DLC for that. I personally would be very shocked by it. What do you think?
I think it would be interesting if we got a because typically in a Zelda game, an in-game dungeon is a dungeon that it may give you a new item, but typically it uses, like, it's that one dungeon that lets you use everything that you've collected so far. And I would like to see something like what the Stone Tower Temple was for Majora's Mask. I would like to see that for this game, Breath of the Wild. Something that maybe 6 months down the road, or since this game supposedly is launching with the NX and coming out on the Wii U around the same day in March of 2017, if they released something maybe around the holiday season, November or December or something, that was $10-15, but it added maybe a few more hours of gameplay and another final dungeon to go through that let you use all of these items and weapons that you've mastered over the past several months to finally put all of those to use one more time. Because if you look at games like Majora's Mask, the Great Fairy Sword, if you remember that item, you have to collect all of the fairies that are separated in the Stone Tower Temple. But when you do that, the game's basically already beaten, so you don't really have much use for it. You get this great new powerful sword, but you don't.
It's more like a trophy.
Right. So if they gave you a dungeon that did let you use that final weapon and some of these other weapons that only have like one or two purposes within the game, I think that would be a great way to not only give fans something extra, but to allow more use out of these weapons that you've already gotten. Because a lot of people were fans of items like the spinner in Twilight Princess, but you only use it a handful of times.
Oh yeah, if I could get an extra dungeon in Twilight Princess, that'd be great.
Yeah.
To use the spinner and all like the ball and chain and everything. Right. I think that would be a great idea. I think if I was to speculate, like let's just say that they did go that route, my speculation would be, maybe a dungeon, maybe not as complex as some of the ones that will be available in the game from the start, because that also seems to be the case. Is whenever Nintendo introduces a new dungeon or something, it's a little more simplistic, or it reuses a lot of assets. To save on development costs. But if I was to guess, as far as a future Amiibo support or DLC, I would imagine, because of the nature of the game is so loose, and like you can travel in many different ways, and you can interact with things in many different ways, that they would introduce more items that just adds to that freedom. Like, not that I would really, like, I'm not putting all my money into this one little example, but like something like a little pedal helicopter or something like that. It's basic in design, but you basically pedal to have a helicopter like function or something. So that you, So
and we've already seen that with Beetle and Skyward Sword.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So it's not outside the realm of possibility, actually. Right. It'd be great if it was actually Beetle's little helicopter thing.
Right. You just go and steal it from him.
Yeah.
Take off with it. Pay him back for every time that you back out of buying something, and he opens up the drop door in the floor. Yeah.
Beetle's Revenge DLC coming this year.